Now, a pretty big story that happened over the weekend that most of you might not be aware of is the Trump administration fired about 18 inspector generals from their respective departments. And first and foremost, this is actually illegal. If an inspector general is fired by the executive branch, they have to notify Congress with a 30-day notice that they are doing so. Now, the reason why I wanted to flag this story for y'all, in case it flew under the radar for you, is because it's pretty suspicious. Just, an inspector general's job is to weed out fraud, abuse, and corruption in their respective departments. There are about 74, if I remember correctly, inspector generals throughout the entire administration, the executive branch. So he didn't fire all of them, but he did fire a good chunk. And so far, he hasn't really given a definitive reason as to why he fired them. I have seen some reporting that most of the inspector generals that he fired were people that they hired from the previous administration. So it might be people that this is speculation, but it might be people that he's already aware might be a problem for him in this administration. But regardless of the reason, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about and understood by everybody. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see who he hires to fill those positions, and also see if he decides to fire even more people. But just the fact that he fired people whose job it is to keep in check their respective departments. They're basically watchdogs. They're basically people who, for lack of a better term, rat out people within their own department. But it's the purpose of it is to make sure that everyone in the department is following the law and that there's no fraud, there's no abuse. So it's pretty suspicious that this happened. It's definitely a huge story that did not get a lot of attention because, again, there's so much news that happened this week that it's hard to keep up. But there it is. Do with that information what you will, and it's definitely something we need to keep an eye on going forward.